At 2:47 p.m. on January 29, 1945, First Sergeant Leonard Funk rounded the corner of a Belgian farmhouse in Holzheim and stopped. 90 German soldiers were staring back at him. Half held weapons. The other half were reaching for rifles stacked in the snow. 4 American GIs knelt with hands behind their heads. These Germans had been prisoners 20 minutes earlier. 80 of them captured during Company C's assault on the village, guarded by only 4 men because that was all Funk could spare. Now they were free, armed, and organizing to attack his company from behind. A German officer stepped forward and shoved an MP-40 submachine gun into Funk's stomach. The officer's face turned red as he screamed something in German. Funk didn't speak German. Neither did any of his men. The officer screamed again, louder, his voice rising with each word. Funk looked at the 90 Germans, looked at his 4 disarmed soldiers kneeling in the snow, looked at the MP-40 pressed against his gut, and started laughing. The German officer's face twisted from confusion to rage. He screamed louder. Funk laughed harder. What happened next lasted less than 60 seconds. 21 Germans died. The rest threw down their weapons, and Leonard Funk earned the Medal of Honor for one of the most impossible acts of combat in the Second World War. All because he couldn't stop laughing. If you want to see how a 5'5" paratrooper defeated 90 armed Germans with nothing but a Thompson submachine gun and nerve, hit that like button. It helps us share these forgotten stories. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Funk. Leonard Alfred Funk, Jr. was born August 27, 1916, in Braddock Township, Pennsylvania. Steel town. Smokestacks and foundries lining the Monongahela River 8 miles east of Pittsburgh. Working-class families grinding through 6-day weeks in the mills. Funk grew up fast, learned responsibility early. By the time he graduated high school in 1934, the Great Depression was crushing. Through its 5th year, jobs were scarce. College was fantasy. Funk found work where he could, store clerk, manual labor, whatever paid. June 1941, war raging across Europe and Asia. Congress extended the draft. Funk's number came up. He reported to the induction center at Wilkinsburg, Pennsylvania. 24 years old, 5'5" tall, 140 pounds. The Army physical examiner probably thought clerk duty or maybe supply. They were wrong. Funk volunteered for the paratroopers. In 1941, American airborne forces barely existed. The concept was new, jumping out of perfectly functional aircraft to land behind enemy lines and fight surrounded. It sounded like suicide to most soldiers. The volunteers were different. They had to be. Airborne training was designed to break men. 5 weeks of running, jumping, climbing, falling. Brutal physical conditioning that washed out half the candidates before the first jump. Then came the towers, then the aircraft. The first time stepping out of a C-47. At 1,200 feet, everything in your body screamed to grab the doorframe and hold on. The ground was impossibly far below. Wind tore at your face. Your parachute was just fabric and cord and faith. Funk earned his jump wings at Fort Benning, Georgia. Got assigned to Company C, 1st Battalion, 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment. The 508th shipped to England in late 1943. They joined the 82nd Airborne Division, the All-Americans, veterans of Sicily and Italy. These men had already jumped into combat. They'd already killed and watched friends die. They'd earned the right to look down on replacements. Funk was 27 years old when he arrived, ancient by paratrooper standards. Most of his squad mates were barely 20. Kids, really. Farm boys and factory workers who'd volunteered for jump school and now wore the silver wings and bloused boots that marked them as airborne. But Funk had something they didn't. Maturity, steadiness, the kind of quiet competence that makes men follow you without question. By D-Day, he was a squad leader. By Holzheim, he'd be acting company executive officer. First, he had to survive Normandy. June 6, 1944. 1:30 a.m., the C-47 Sky train shuddered as German flak exploded around it. Funk stood in the stick, the line of paratroopers waiting to jump, 60 pounds of equipment strapped to his body. M1A1 Thompson submachine gun, ammunition, grenades, rations, medical kit. The aircraft was at 400 feet, too low for a safe jump. Standard procedure called for 1,200 feet minimum, but the pilots couldn't climb. German anti-aircraft fire was everywhere. Tracers arced through darkness like angry fireflies. The men could hear metal fragments pinging off the fuselage. The Normandy invasion involved 13,000 paratroopers from the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions. They were supposed to land behind Utah and Omaha beaches, secure bridges and crossroads, prevent German reinforcements from reaching the coast, hold until the seaborne forces linked up with them. Nothing went according to plan. The green light came on. Funk jumped. The prop blast hit him like a physical blow. Then the parachute deployed, and the world went quiet. Below him, France, occupied France, enemy territory in every direction. The D-Day airborne operation was chaos from the first minute. German anti-aircraft fire had scattered the formations across 50 miles of French countryside. Paratroopers were landing in flooded fields and drowning under the weight of their equipment. Others came down in the middle of German camps and died before they could cut free of their harnesses. Some units lost 50% of their men before they hit the ground. Funk landed hard in a field 40 miles from his designated drop zone. His ankle twisted on impact, badly sprained, maybe fractured. The pain was immediate and intense. Every step would be agony for the next 2 weeks, but he could walk, he could fight. That was all that mattered. He gathered his parachute, buried it in a hedgerow, and started moving. Around him the night erupted with gunfire. Parachutes hung from trees like white flowers in the darkness. German machine guns chattered. American voices called out passwords in the dark. Cricket signals clicked as scattered troopers tried to link up. Funk moved carefully. His ankle screamed with each step. He used his Thompson as a crutch when he thought no one was looking. Within hours, he'd collected a group of lost paratroopers, men from different units, different companies, different regiments, some from the 101st, some from the 82nd, 18 of them eventually. All looking for leadership, all separated from their units in the chaos of the jump. Funk gave them direction. He organized them into a fighting unit, assigned sectors of fire, established a chain of command. These men didn't know him, had never served under him, but they followed anyway. For 10 days, Funk led this scratch group through German-held territory, moving at night, hiding by day, fighting when they had to. He insisted on serving as lead scout despite his injured ankle, putting himself in the most dangerous position to protect his men. Every time they encountered Germans, Funk was the first to make contact, first to draw fire, first to engage. They hit German patrols, ambushed convoys, cut telephone wires, everything small unit infantry could do to disrupt the enemy. On June 10th, they destroyed a German ammunition dump. On June 13th, they killed a German motorcycle courier and captured documents that intelligence found valuable. On June 15th, they ambushed a German supply column and captured food and medical supplies. They linked up with Allied forces on June 17th. Every single man survived, not one casualty. 10 days behind enemy lines, 40 miles of German-occupied France. Leonard Funk brought them all home. The Silver Star, third highest combat decoration, plus a Bronze Star for meritorious service, plus his first Purple Heart for the ankle injury. Funk accepted the medals without ceremony, returned to his unit, kept training. The war wasn't over, not by half. September 17, 1944, Holland. Operation Market Garden, the largest airborne assault in history. 35,000 paratroopers dropping into the Netherlands to capture a series of bridges across the Rhine. British, American, Polish forces all jumping together. If it worked, the Allies would be in Germany by Christmas. If it failed, thousands would die for nothing. Field Marshal Montgomery's plan was ambitious, maybe too ambitious. The paratroopers had to capture and hold 7 bridges across 64 miles of Dutch territory. Ground forces would race up a single highway to link up with them, Highway 69. The Dutch called it Hell's Highway. Everything depended on speed, on surprise, on nothing going wrong. Everything went wrong. The British 1st Airborne Division landed at Arnhem, the farthest bridge. They were surrounded by SS Panzer divisions that weren't supposed to be there. For 9 days, they fought and died in the streets of Arnhem. Only 2,000 of 10,000 men made it out. The bridge too far entered military history as a cautionary tale about overambition. But Leonard Funk didn't know about the big picture. He only knew his mission: secure the drop zones, support the landings, kill Germans. After touching down near Nijmegen, his company moved to secure their objective: standard stuff, clear buildings, check for snipers, establish defensive positions. Then Funk noticed something that wasn't part of the plan. 3 German 20mm flak-Vierling anti-aircraft guns were firing at the incoming Allied gliders. The gliders carried reinforcements, jeeps, artillery pieces, ammunition, medical supplies. If those guns kept firing, hundreds of men would die before they touched down. The gun position was dug in on high ground near Witchen, approximately 20 German soldiers manning the weapons and providing security. Sandbags, camouflage nets, interlocking fields of fire. Funk had 3 men with him. Standard military doctrine says you need a 3-to-1 advantage to assault a prepared position. 9 attackers for every 3 defenders minimum. Funk had the opposite. He was outnumbered 7-to-1. He attacked anyway. Leading from the front, Funk and his 3-man patrol assaulted the German position. They used fire and movement, one pair advancing while the other pair provided covering fire. They killed the security detachment first. The soldiers outside the gun emplacements. Then, they stormed the gun positions themselves. Close range, Thompson submachine guns against bolt-action rifles. The Germans never had a chance. All 3 guns went silent. The gliders landed safely. The Distinguished Service Cross, 2nd highest decoration for valor, 1 step below the Medal of Honor. Funk now had a Silver Star and a DSC, 2 of the rarest combat decorations in the American military. Most soldiers who earned even 1 were considered heroes for life. Newspapers wrote stories about them. They got parades when they went home. Funk just went back to work. December 16, 1944. The Germans launched their last desperate offensive. 3 armies, 400,000 men, 1,400 tanks, 1,900 artillery pieces. They crashed through the American lines in the Ardennes forest, aiming for the port of Antwerp. Hitler's plan was insane, but almost worked. He was gambling everything on one massive attack: split the Allied armies, capture Antwerp, force a negotiated peace in the West, so Germany could focus on the Soviets in the East. For the Americans, it was a nightmare. The offensive hit thinly held sectors manned by green troops and exhausted veterans pulled off the line to rest. Entire divisions crumbled. Thousands of soldiers surrendered in the first days. The German advance created a bulge 50 miles deep in the Allied lines. The Battle of the Bulge, the largest battle the American Army would fight in World War II. 89,000 American casualties before it ended, 19,000 killed, 7,500 wounded, 23,000 missing or captured. The weather was brutal: snow, ice, temperatures dropping to 5 degrees below zero. Men froze to death in their foxholes. Weapons jammed. Vehicles wouldn't start. The cold was as deadly as the Germans. Then came Malmedy, December 17, 1944. 1 day into the offensive. A convoy from the 285th Field Artillery Observation Battalion was moving near the Bonnier Crossroads when they ran into the spearhead of Kampfgruppe Peiper, an SS armored battle group. The Americans were rear echelon troops, artillery observers, radio operators, not infantry, not equipped for a fight with tanks and armored infantry. After a brief engagement, 113 Americans surrendered. They were herded into a farmer's field near the crossroads. Hands up, disarmed. Prisoners of war protected under the Geneva Convention. Then the SS opened fire. Machine guns, pistols, rifles. The Germans shot them down like cattle. Men who tried to run were cut down. Men who fell wounded were finished off with shots to the head. 84. Americans died in that field. Some survived by playing dead. They lay in the snow for hours, German boots walking past them, German voices laughing. When darkness came, 43 survivors crawled away and made it back to American lines. The news spread through the American army like wildfire. Within hours, every soldier knew. The Germans were executing prisoners. Malmedy changed everything. Before, the war in Europe had rules, unofficial, unspoken, but real. Soldiers surrendered when the situation was hopeless. Prisoners were treated according to the Geneva Convention. There was a kind of grim professionalism between enemies. After Malmedy, the rules were gone. American soldiers swore they'd never surrender to the SS. Some units passed down orders: no SS prisoners. Kill them where they stand. When Funk heard about the massacre, something hardened inside him. He'd already seen too much. Normandy, Holland, friends dying in fields and forests across Europe. But this was different. This was murder, cold-blooded execution of men who had surrendered in good faith. Leonard Funk decided he would never surrender to the Germans, no matter what. That decision would matter very soon. January 29th, 1945. The Ardennes. The German offensive had been broken. Now the Allies were pushing back. Company C, 508th Parachute Infantry, received orders to capture the Belgian village of Holzheim. There was a problem. Company C was under strength. The executive officer, the second in command, had been killed 2 days earlier. They didn't have enough men for the assault. Not enough infantry, not enough riflemen, just cooks and clerks and supply personnel. Funk was now acting executive officer. He looked at his depleted roster and made a decision. He walked to the company headquarters area. Inside were clerks, supply personnel, cooks, men who normally never saw combat, men who'd joined the paratroopers for the pay bonus and the prestige, but had been shuffled to rear. Echelon duties. You're all infantry now, Funk told them. Grab your weapons. We're taking that village. He formed a makeshift platoon, 30 men who'd spent most of the war behind desks and stoves. They'd had basic training, sure. They knew how to fire a rifle, how to throw a grenade. But real combat? Most of them had never fired a shot at another human being, never been shot at, never seen a friend die. Funk didn't care. He needed bodies. He'd turn them into soldiers on the march. The march to Holzheim was 15 miles through waist-deep snow in a driving blizzard. Temperatures well below freezing, German artillery shells exploded around them, harassing fire from the flanks. Random rounds meant to kill or maim or simply terrorize. Funk led from the front, always. His ankle still bothered him. The injury from Normandy had never fully healed. Every step was a reminder, but he never let it show. They reached Holzheim at 1:30 p.m. Funk organized the assault, his clerks, his cooks, his makeshift warriors. They followed him into the village. 15 houses, Germans in everyone, machine guns, rifles, grenades. Funk and his men cleared them all, room by room, building by building. The fighting was close and brutal. No artillery support, no air cover, just infantry doing what infantry does. 30 prisoners captured by Funk's group. Not one American casualty. Another unit from the 508th captured 50 more Germans on the other side of town. 80 prisoners total. They were corralled in the yard of a farmhouse on the edge of the village, a stone building, barn attached, good cover, easy to defend. Funk looked at his exhausted men. They'd been marching and fighting for hours. Some were wounded. All were spent. There was still resistance in other parts of the village. Scattered German soldiers who hadn't surrendered yet. Snipers, maybe. Isolated pockets that needed clearing. He could only spare 4 men to guard the prisoners. "Keep them here," he told the guards. "We'll send reinforcements when we can. Don't let them go anywhere. Watch them close." Funk headed back into the fight. He had no idea what was about to happen behind him. While Funk was clearing the rest of Holzheim, a German patrol approached the farmhouse. 10 men, maybe 20. It's hard to know exactly, wearing white camouflage capes over their uniforms. In the snow and confusion, they looked almost identical to American troops in winter gear. The 4 guards didn't realize the danger until too late. The Germans overwhelmed them, disarmed them, forced them to their knees in the snow, hands behind heads, execution style. Then the German patrol freed the prisoners, 80 German soldiers plus the patrol that freed them, 90 men total. They grabbed weapons from the pile, rifles, machine guns, ammunition. They organized quickly. These weren't green recruits. These were veterans, men who'd been fighting since France or Russia. They knew exactly what they were going to do. Attack Company C from the rear. Funk's company was scattered across the village, mopping up resistance, searching buildings, treating wounded. They weren't expecting an attack from behind. If 90 Germans hit them while they were spread out and disorganized, it would be a massacre. The German officer in charge, probably a lieutenant or captain, began giving orders. "Position the machine guns here, set up the ambush there, wait for my signal. Then we attack." That's when Leonard Funk walked around the corner. Funk had come to check on the prisoners. Routine, make sure the guards were okay, see if reinforcements had arrived. He wasn't expecting to walk into 90 armed Germans. He rounded the corner of the farmhouse and froze. The scene was surreal. His 4 guards were on their knees in the snow. The prisoners, who should have been unarmed and contained, were standing everywhere, rifles in their hands, machine guns being positioned, organizing for battle. The German officer spotted Funk immediately. The first, sergeant stripes on his sleeve, marked him as a leader. A prize? The officer strode forward, tall, confident, arrogant even. He shoved his MP-40 submachine gun into Funk's stomach, hard, painful. Then he screamed a command in German. The words meant nothing to Funk. He didn't speak German, had never bothered to learn, didn't see the point. But the meaning was clear from the tone and the gun in his gut. "Surrender. Drop your weapon. Give up." The officer screamed again, louder. His face turned red. Veins bulged in his neck. Spittle flew from his mouth. Funk looked around, took in the situation. 90 Germans, half of them armed, the other half reaching for weapons. His 4 men disarmed and helpless. 1 other American soldier standing beside him, also armed, also facing impossible odds. The mathematics of survival were 0. There was no scenario where Leonard Funk won this fight. He was outnumbered 90-1. The sensible thing, the rational thing, the thing that would save his life in the short term was to surrender, drop his weapon, raise his hands, become a prisoner. But Funk remembered Malmedy. 84. Americans murdered in a field, shot like animals, left to freeze in the snow, bodies stacked like cordwood until someone could bury them. He'd already decided he would never surrender to the Germans. Ever. So instead of complying, instead of dropping his Thompson and raising his hands, Leonard Funk did something inexplicable. He started laughing. Nobody knows exactly why Funk laughed. He was interviewed multiple times after the war, asked about it, pressed for details. His answer was always vague. Maybe it was a deliberate tactic, a ruse to confuse the enemy and buy time. Funk was a veteran. He'd been fighting for 2 years. He knew how to think under pressure. Laughing might throw the Germans off balance, give him a few seconds to act. Maybe it was stress. The human brain does strange things when faced with certain death. Sometimes you laugh, sometimes you cry. Sometimes you do nothing at all, just shut down. Maybe it was genuine amusement, the absurdity of the situation. An officer screaming in a language Funk couldn't understand, expecting compliance. The entire scene was ridiculous when you thought about it. Funk himself later said he tried to stop laughing but couldn't. Something about the German screaming in German, gesturing frantically, face turning purple with rage, touched a nerve. Whatever the reason, the effect was devastating. The German officer screamed louder. Funk laughed harder. He bent over, shoulders shaking, called out to his men. "I don't understand what he's saying." The line was delivered in English, conversational, like he was discussing the weather. Some of the German soldiers started laughing too. The tension was bizarre, uncomfortable. Their officer was turning purple with rage. And this American wouldn't stop cackling. The officer was completely thrown off. This wasn't how prisoners behaved. They begged, they pleaded, they complied. They raised their hands and said, "Kamerad," and waited to be taken to the rear. They didn't stand there laughing while you shoved a gun in their stomach. For a few critical seconds, the German officer didn't know what to do. He kept screaming, kept gesturing, but his authority was undermined. The moment was slipping away from him. And Leonard Funk used those seconds. Still appearing to laugh, still bent over, Funk slowly reached up toward his Thompson submachine gun. It was slung over his shoulder, the standard carrying position for paratroopers, barrel pointed down, stock against his back. The German officer watched. Good. This was progress. The American was finally surrendering his weapon. About time. Funk's hand closed around the pistol grip of the Thompson. He began to unsling it, slowly, carefully, making it look like compliance. The German officer relaxed slightly. He was about to have another prisoner, another trophy, another American to march to the rear. Then Funk moved, in one motion, faster than thought, faster than reaction. He swung the Thompson down, brought the muzzle into line, and squeezed the trigger. The M1A1 Thompson fires 45 ACP rounds at 600 rounds per minute. At close range, each round hits like a sledgehammer. The bullets don't just wound, they destroy. The .45 caliber round was designed to stop a man cold, to drop him where he stood. The first burst caught the German officer in the chest. 30 rounds in less than 3 seconds. The officer was dead before he hit the ground. His MP-40 clattered into the snow. His eyes were still wide with surprise. Funk didn't stop, couldn't stop. The moment he started shooting, he committed to killing everyone or dying himself. There was no middle ground, no negotiation, no surrender. He pivoted, still firing. The Thompson sprayed an arc of lead across the German soldiers nearest to him. Men screamed, men fell. Blood sprayed across the white snow like paint. Brass casings tumbled through the air, steaming in the cold, tinkling as they hit the ground. The magazine ran dry, 30 rounds gone in seconds. This was the critical moment, the moment that would determine if Leonard Funk lived or died. A Thompson magazine takes about 2 seconds to reload if you're practiced, if you've done it 1,000 times in training, if muscle memory takes over and your hands know what to do without thinking. 2 seconds is forever in a firefight. 2 seconds is enough time for 90 Germans to kill 1 American. 2 seconds is enough time to die a dozen different ways. Funk yanked the empty magazine out, slammed a fresh one in, racked the bolt, and kept shooting. The whole sequence took less than a heartbeat. Pure muscle memory. Thousands of hours of training compressed into one fluid motion. At the same time, he was screaming at his men, "Pick up their weapons! Pick up their weapons!" The 4 guards, still on their knees, still with hands behind their heads, scrambled for the rifles. The dead Germans had dropped. Seconds ago, they were prisoners. Now they were fighting for their lives. The Germans were in chaos. Their officer was dead. The American who was laughing was now killing them. Nobody gave orders for this. Nobody knew what to do. Standard doctrine said you surrounded prisoners, you disarmed them, you marched them to the rear. Nobody said what to do when the prisoners started killing you. Some of them shot back. Rifles cracked, machine pistols chattered, bullets snapped past Funk's head. One round killed the American soldier standing beside him. The man dropped without a sound, dead before he hit the ground. Funk kept firing, kept moving, kept killing. His guards had weapons now. They were shooting, too. Not organized, not coordinated. Just survival instinct. Point and pull the trigger. The Germans were caught in a crossfire they never expected. Some tried to run. Some tried to surrender. Some just stood there, frozen, unable to process what was happening. 60 seconds. That's all it took. 21 German soldiers lay dead in the snow. 24 more were wounded, bleeding, screaming, trying to crawl away. The rest, more than 40 men, had thrown down their weapons and raised their hands. The prisoners were prisoners again. Leonard Funk stood in the middle of the carnage, smoke rising from his Thompson, surrounded by bodies. His ears were ringing from the gunfire. His hands were shaking from adrenaline. He looked at his men, looked at the Germans, looked at the dead. That, he said to his guards, was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. The aftermath was almost anticlimactic. Company C secured Holzheim. The village was cleared by nightfall. The captured Germans, the survivors anyway, were marched to the rear under much heavier guard this time. Nobody was taking chances. Funk reported the incident to his commanding officer. Just another firefight. Just another day in the war. But the story spread. Through the regiment, through the division, through the entire 82nd Airborne, the sergeant who laughed at 90 Germans and killed half of them with a Tommy gun. When the Medal of Honor recommendation reached Washington, nobody questioned it. What Funk did at Holzheim was beyond dispute, outnumbered 90-1, enemy weapon in his gut. And instead of surrendering, he attacked. The official citation reads, "He was ordered to surrender by a German officer who pushed a machine pistol into his stomach." Although overwhelmingly outnumbered and facing almost certain death, First Sergeant Funk, pretending to comply with the order, began slowly to unsling his submachine gun from his shoulder and then, with lightning motion, brought the muzzle into line and riddled the German officer. He turned upon the other Germans, firing and shouting to the other Americans to seize the enemy's weapons. September 5, 1945. The White House. President Harry Truman placed the Medal of Honor around Leonard Funk's neck. The blue ribbon with white stars, the highest decoration America can give. "I would rather have this medal," Truman said, "than be President of the United States. Let's count what Leonard Funk earned during World War II. Medal of Honor for Holzheim, Distinguished Service Cross for the anti-aircraft guns in Holland. Silver Star for leading 18 men through 40 miles of enemy territory in Normandy. Bronze Star for meritorious service. Purple Heart. 3 of them. He was wounded 3 separate times and kept fighting. Plus the Croix de Guerre from France, the Order of Leopold from Belgium, the Military Order of William from the Netherlands, their equivalent of the Victoria Cross. Leonard Funk was the most decorated paratrooper of World War II. 5 foot 5 inches tall, 140 pounds, a former store clerk who became a legend. The war ended. Funk went home. He didn't write a book, didn't do the lecture circuit, didn't turn his Medal of Honor into a speaking career or a political platform. He didn't cash in on his fame. He went back to Pennsylvania and got a job with the Veterans Administration, the VA, the massive bureaucracy responsible for taking care of America's former soldiers, helping other veterans navigate the paperwork, processing disability claims, cutting through red tape for men who'd given everything and now needed help getting what they were owed. The same kind of clerk work he'd done before the war, the same quiet, unglamorous, necessary work. For 27 years, Leonard Funk sat at a desk and helped veterans. He rose through the ranks, became division chief of the Pittsburgh Regional Office, good salary, steady hours, a pension waiting at the end. His wife, Gertrude, stuck with him through all of it. They had 2 daughters. They lived in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, working-class neighborhood, working-class town, not far from where he grew up. The Medal of Honor hung in a case somewhere, the Distinguished Service Cross, the Silver Star, all the foreign decorations from France and Belgium and the Netherlands. He never talked about them. When people asked about Holzheim, about the laughing, about the 90 Germans, he shrugged it off. Did what I had to do. That's it. That's all he ever said. November 20th, 1992. Braddock Hills, Pennsylvania. Leonard Alfred Funk Jr. died of cancer. He was 76 years old. They buried him at Arlington National Cemetery. Section 35, grave 23734. Among the heroes of every American war. At the time of his death, he was the last surviving Medal of Honor recipient from the 82nd Airborne Division in World War II. A fitness center at Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty, is named after him. A highway in Pennsylvania bears his name. A post office in McKeesport was dedicated to him in 2023. But most people have never heard of Leonard Funk. They know Audie Murphy. They know Alvin York, the famous Medal of Honor recipients. They don't know the short, quiet paratrooper who laughed at 90 Germans and killed 21 of them with a Thompson. Here's what the story of Leonard Funk tells us. War doesn't favor the big. It doesn't favor the strong. It doesn't favor the reckless or the fearless. War favors the ones who keep thinking when everyone else has stopped. At Holzheim, Leonard Funk had every reason to surrender. The math was impossible. 90 against 1, a gun in his stomach, his men already captured. Any rational person would have given up, accepted capture, hoped for the best. But Funk wasn't thinking about the math. He was thinking about Malmedy, about 84 Americans murdered in a field, about what the Germans did to prisoners. And he was thinking about his men, the 4 guards on their knees, the soldiers scattered across the village who would be hit from behind if these Germans escaped. So he laughed, maybe as a tactic, maybe from stress, maybe because the whole thing struck him as absurd. A German officer screaming in German at an American who didn't speak German, expecting compliance through volume. And while the German officer was confused, while everyone was off balance, while the moment hung suspended, Leonard Funk made his move. 60 seconds later, he was standing in a field of bodies, alive when he should have been dead. There's a quote often attributed to President Truman about the Medal of Honor: "I would rather have this medal than be President of the United States." He said it to Leonard Funk. September 5th, 1945. The White House Rose Garden. Think about that. The most powerful man in the world, the man who had just ended World War II with atomic bombs, the man who would reshape the entire global order, looking at a 5'5" former store clerk from Pennsylvania and saying, "I'd rather be you." Because what Truman understood, what everyone who reads Medal of Honor citations understands, is that courage isn't about size or strength or training. Courage is what you do when there's a gun in your stomach and 90 men want you dead, and you laugh instead of surrender. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Stories about soldiers who did the impossible. Real people, real heroism. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia? Our community stretches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer. You're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure Leonard Funk doesn't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.